Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I'm here with John Chancellor from Teach the Soul, and John had something to talk about. He's written a book,
Words to Live and Work By.
We're going to go over a couple of things that he's isolated from time immemorial and talk about how it applies to managing your cravings and dealing with overeating. Hey, John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and you?
Very well. I understand you might have another quote to talk about.
Sure, and this one is, do you want more happiness? And I start with a quote, and this one is from Seneca. We've talked about him before. It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Now, when I ask the question, do you want more happiness, that might seem like a silly question to ask. Who wouldn't? One of the most important sentences in the U.S. Constitution reads, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." But if the pursuit of happiness is one of our unalienable rights, why aren't more people happy? And scientists have devised ways to measure the level of happiness and perform studies to determine the happiness throughout the population. In the past 50 years, the level of happiness in the United States has remained relatively flat, despite the significant increase in the material gains of the average person. The standard of living has increased dramatically, yet we have seen no increase in our level of happiness.
Why is that?
It's very interesting. Professor Robert Emmons of the University of California, Davis, has done some studying on this. And he says there's a simple but profound way that we can increase happiness is to show gratitude. Quoting him, clinical trials indicate that the practice of gratitude can have a dramatic and lasting effect in a person's life. Gratitude can lower blood pressure, improve immune function, promote happiness and well-being, and spur acts of helpfulness, generosity, and cooperation. So what does Professor Emmons recommend? The first thing is to start a gratitude journal. Write down 3 to 5 things a day that you're grateful for. You should adopt the practice of writing gratitude letters to people you haven't properly thanked for some kindness they've given you in the past. His studies have shown that daily thoughts of gratitude will increase your level of happiness by as much as 25%. Gratitude is just simply being aware of the good things in your life, not focusing on all the things you don't have, not focusing on the negative things, focusing on, okay, everything in life is not peachy and cream, is not rosy, but there's some good things. You got a roof over your head, you've got a job, you've got income, you've got some friends and family. Journaling about your gratitude a few minutes a day for 3 weeks has shown to create positive effects lasting as long as 6 months. If you're wondering what you should write about, just take a look at your life and express your gratitude for the things you have. These daily reminders help you retain the thoughts to focus on positive, being grateful for what you have instead of disappointed for what you lack. The advertising world today does an extremely good job of creating desire for the things we don't have.
Yeah, right.
So being aware and appreciative of the things you do have is a way to increase your happiness. Don't fuss over how you frame your thoughts. Just make sure you honestly express your gratitude. If you want more happiness in your life, give this suggestion a try. In time, you'll find these simple acts of expressing gratitude will bring more happiness to your life. Now, I think that you can take this a step further, Glenn, and if a person has more happiness in their life, if they're more focused on the positive things that are going on in their life, what would that do to help them curb their cravings?
It facilitates the success identity. It makes dopamine a little more available to you so that you have more experience of pleasure and less interest in searching for junk food as a dopamine hit. And I would take it a step further and suggest that you do this right before you eat, because your brain is a calorie acquisition machine and it takes notice of what you're thinking and doing right before you acquire calories, because the odds are that if it repeats that, it's going to get more calories. And so if you take control of what you're saying right before you eat and you're expressing some gratitude, then you're more likely to feel happy just before you eat anything. And you'll be less likely to have to look for the artificial boosts of concentrated forms of sugar and starch and oil and excitotoxins and those kind of things. So I think that's a beautiful sentiment. I could probably use it more myself, to tell you the truth. And I'm really grateful that you brought it to us.
There's one other thing I would say is I think that it probably has an indirect way of increasing willpower, or said differently, your willpower can be drained if you're focusing on negative things. I think focusing on positive things increases your willpower, increases your ability to do difficult tasks. It gives you more emotional energy so that you're not as knocked off balance when something comes up that is a little bit challenging. I think there are a lot of benefits beyond just this elusive happiness, a lot of positive practical benefits that will make life a lot easier if you spend some time each day focusing on the good things you have in life and appreciating those rather than being negative about things.
When you focus on negative things, you give your inner food monster the opportunity to say, oh, life is really miserable. The only source of pleasure there is this slop, you see. So you better go get some right now. Feed me, yum, 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 yum. When you focus on positive things, you feel like life is filled with pleasure and the drive to find the pleasure elsewhere is much diminished. So that's what I have to say.
Very good. That's a very good way of saying it. And I think that it will help people in defeating their cravings. I think the important thing is that it's not a quick fix.
It's more like a vitamin than an antibiotic.
Absolutely. You need to do it each day, and it builds up over time.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
You're quite welcome. I enjoyed chatting with you.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.